The rate of teenage and unwanted pregnancies is constantly on the rise, despite awareness programs and safer sex campaigns. What are the reasons for this, and what are the issues that seem to arise all the time surrounding this topic? National Pregnancy Awareness Week took place recently, and we thought it appropriate to chat about this subject now to find how spirituality can help to alleviate the situation. 1828 uhambisana no Precious Mahogodi, director ye Teta Junction for Love Life. Ladies, welcome to the show. Come through. How are you guys doing today?
Hello. Good, and how are you guys?
Well, thanks. Precious, let's start with you. Let's talk about the bigger picture. Paint us the picture now. What is the rate now? What is it looking like in terms of teenage pregnancies in South Africa?
Generally, the trends are really high. You find that in most instances where you find the high level of teenage pregnancies is in schools where they are poorly resourced, and in where there is a considerable age mixing within those schools. You find as well in areas like Limpopo, the prevalence is quite high, and research shows that quite a number of young people between the ages of 15 to 18 find themselves, battling with challenges of growing up, issues of self-esteem, issues of, self-worth and all of that. And you find, it's not easy to negotiate these things, especially if you have other social issues that you're battling with as a young person.
Rufile, your organization is called 1828. Tell us about the significance of 1828 and how you started it.
I started it in October 2008, and really the reason that it's called 1828 is because I was 28 years old at the time, looking back on the last 10 years of my life. And I came to the realization that if I had had someone mentoring and supporting me from matric at the age of 18, I would have done a lot of things differently. So I like to feel that the mistakes that I've made and some of the lessons that I've learned have not all been in vain. That's why 1828 goes into high schools and does workshops for girls in grade 11 and grade 12 to share some of those insights and life skills. And we also have a mentoring program for the girls as well called Big Sister, where they are mentored and guided and given advice by an older woman.
Now, as you know, today is teenage pregnancy. What are the programs that you have that you guys are doing on the ground in terms of touching communities or schools?
The schools that we go into are predominantly on the East Rand, Ekurhuleni district, and we also have some schools in Soweto as well. What we do is we consult with the head of life orientation before we come and run a workshop, because there are specific overlaps in terms of our program and the life orientation curriculum. But I think the first one I'd like to make, and I'm sure, Precious, you can back me up on this, it concerns me that a lot of the interventions around teen pregnancy are aimed at girls. There's very little research around boys and young men and what it is they're going to do to mitigate some of these risks and actually handle the problem, because girls don't just fall pregnant. They obviously have, boyfriends and partners that they are engaging in sexual activity with, but you find very few statistics on young boys and fatherhood. I don't know, Precious, if you have anything.
I suppose, why we would be able to pick up on young girls is because then, they go to clinics and once they're pregnant, and then you can pick up on the statistics. But those statistics should also be there should be a study, that says what are young boys also doing. Because one of the studies that was done by the Kaiser Family Foundation actually found that young people say one of the most important issues that they battle with is teenage pregnancy, and that's a problem for them. And that's a recent study in 2007.
But then, Precious, you get, with Love Life, there's a lot of marketing, there's intensive marketing, but you don't see the rates decreasing. Instead, they just keep on increasing. What is going on the ground?
I think what is important is that we need to look at this in a holistic approach, not just keep on just saying, practice safe sex and all of that, but we need to look at some of the other issues, socioeconomic reasons, and that young people are also faced with. You come from families now where we see that HIV has really had an adverse effect on families across the spectrum. And you find a lot of family child-headed households where, young people really find themselves pushed into roles and responsibilities that they're not ready for. The maturity levels are not there. And then there are other kinds as well of pressures that they're confronted with, peer pressure, issues of self-worth, again, as I mentioned, of, where do I go from here? And there are no incentives really that encourage young people to say, what is it that you need to look forward to for you, and not to engage in risky behaviors.
You spoke about family pressures. How important is it for mothers and fathers, you know, that initial, you know, unit to be the ones that are building our young ones?
It's very, very key in building young people. The family structure is very important, where a person feels a sense of belonging, feels a sense that, you know, they are taken care of, they have somewhere to belong, and that is where you also entrench your values as a family. And what is very important that we also really say at Love Life is that have open and honest communication with the young people, with your children. Talk about sexuality issues, you know, talk about the values as well, and you know that entrenches, you know, a sense of self-worth in a young person, and saying that, you know, I can talk to my mother, I can talk to my father, and they are present and they're interested in my life. You know.
Refilwe, let's go back to such an important point that you touched on men and boys and the role that they play in all this. What should we be saying to boys? What kind of initiatives should we be giving boys? And especially, I want you to talk around the responsibility of fatherhood, because we already know that pregnancy is happening, and we also know that abafana bayabaleka.
I think a major area of concern is the fact that a lot of the households in our communities are characterized by the absence of fathers. The households are being headed up by women, and boys are growing up with a lack of positive male role models. So a good starting point would be to get positive role models for them, big brothers, mentors, even if it's someone within a youth group context or someone within a church context. They need to be reaching out to other positive young men for that sort of support, because there are certain nuances around masculinity that a woman can never address or fully comprehend. So necessarily there has to be a male figure who's going to be guiding that boy into manhood, I think, is the first step. And
then touching on churches, what advice do you have for the churches in our communities to get closer to those boys and to get closer to spreading the message with the pantsing in teenage pregnancy?
I think it's very important for them to understand their responsibilities as young men, as boyfriends engaging in sexual behavior. I think the priests within those churches are very respected in communities. So if we can start seeing the formation of youth groups within the church that focus on empowering young men with the skills that they need to go through life and the skills that they need to become more responsible fathers, then we can sort out these problems. I think it's really one-sided to be doing things like virginity testing and to be giving girls, you know, the pills and contraception, because again, it's not the fact that they're full pregnant ngwabo. They are boys who are involved in the mix, but there aren't any. We're not seeing very many interventions that are targeted at young men.
Precious, there are a lot of Love Life campaigns. Everywhere you look, there's a billboard, you see adverts on television. But is there some kind of campaign that also speaks of spirituality as a way of, you know, treating yourself with respect, abstaining from sex till you are, you know, married, etc., etc.?
At Love Life, we have a number of programs, and we don't really specify as, you know, a certain, you know, religion or whatever, but as a family, it's important that you engage with your children and talk about what are your values. And as a young person, you need to also understand that once you decide or you make the decision to engage in sexual behavior, they come with responsibilities, as Refilwe has already alluded. That there are, once you get, at least do it with an informed mind and knowing that what could be coming out of the actions that you're taking. What is important for us, what we really teach and have workshops on for young people, is delay as much as possible being involved in sexual activity, you know. And if you do decide to engage, use condoms, you know, which is very important.
Now, Precious, normally kids to have positive role models, you know. You want your celebrities to be positive role models to your kids because they do love their celebrities. Do you feel like celebrities are passing on good messages to our kids?
I think what is important for young people to understand is that as much as you look up to someone, you need to get that source of inspiration from yourself. You need to motivate yourself. And not everyone is perfect. And there are certain things that people will do that don't necessarily portray a positive, you know, attitude or positiveness about it. And you need to really dig within yourself and say, despite the challenges that I have, despite the challenges that I'm faced with, You know, I will overcome whatever it is, and I will make, you know, the necessary strides and take action to overcome whatever it is that I'm going through.
For yourself.
You take responsibility for yourself. And a lot, yes, you find that anchoring within your spirituality, within the value base, you know, and it's very important to know that as a young person, you know, we cannot prescribe to you to say this is what you need to do in terms of spirituality, but you need to know what is it that anchors you and take you forth when times are really difficult and there's nothing else to look forward to. You know, it's very important to have that kind of anchoring, but also to tell yourself that I'm worthy of good things in life and I'm going to do my utmost best to get there.
For sure. Moral regeneration. You know, in closing, what is your message? Everybody talks about this word, and I sometimes think that people don't really understand what it means. But from you and your organization, what do you want to say to young people? And what's your message to them to say, let's wake up, guys?
I think it begins with you is the first thing that I'm going to say. And we can't speak of a lack of social cohesion or a lack of morals in society, because society is constituted by a number of individuals. So the actions that you take at an individual level necessarily will have an impact, because you're not an island. You're functioning within a family unit, within a work unit, a school context, university. You are a bigger part of society. The first and the most important thing that I'd have to say is that whenever you do something to hurt yourself or you hurt someone else, it will have ripple effects and other consequences. So that sense of worth and that sense of esteem and that sense of believing in yourself is key. And one of the tips I'll give to young people, it's what we do at 1828, is a vision board exercise where you take a big piece of cardboard and you take magazines and you cut out pictures that represent the future vision that you have for yourself. Whether it's being more educated, living in a better house, eating healthier food, driving a nice car, because that is something that gives you something to look forward to every day. No matter what's happening in your circumstances, no matter how terrible socioeconomically your situation is, when you see that vision board every day, it's something that motivates you and it's something that keeps you on track. And I can personally attest to the fact that it's something that actually works, because I've seen the changes it's made in my life as well. So we really encourage the girls to really have a sense of self and to have positive influences and to do things in a way that they'll benefit. And a lot of the time, young people cannot adequately foresee the consequences of their actions. And it's okay to get pregnant at 16 because I'll get the government grant, or it's okay to get a sugar daddy because they're not foreseeing the consequences.
Life will carry on. To the both of you, sabonga kakhulu ukuthi nithathe isikhathi nizokhuluma nathi la Spirit Sunday. Ngithemba ukuthi especially abafana bamamele lengxoxo le. Especially abafana.
What I loved about that is that you guys are both echoing self-love, or you know, the message of self-worth and self-love for young girls. I love that.
And young boys.
And young boys.
We won't cut them out. We won't shut them out. Thank you.
Let's get started here for Masibuya Sizofunda Untitled Ministries.
And the a cappella voices of Elemental Sound and the show. See you in a bit.